going to change more than you know, more than you realize, and you're not even going to see it coming. Welcome into the queue, everyone. I am Belligerent, here with you once again, and I'm going to try and make it through this because I got a lot on my mind, but I'm got to admit I'm kind of brain dead right now, but let's get into the mood right now. All right, let's pump it up. So, do you realize how different the landscape of Vainglory competitive is going to become now? Yeah, we're all hyped. We're all excited for 5v5, but what's going to happen to the competitive scene? I mean, think about it. Most teams carry 4 players if they're, and half the time the 4th player doesn't even really doesn't God, what's the word I'm looking for? See, I told you, brain dead. Half the time the sub doesn't even participate. Now we're talking we got to go 5v5, and you got to carry at least 1 sub, right? Probably 2. I mean, I think 2 right now is the max. Are they going to raise that to 3? But so let's think about that. So right now we have 8 teams in VG, right? And 4 players a team, maybe 5, but 4 players a team. So you're talking about 32 players, give or take. Some teams have 5. I don't even know how serious those are. When you get a lot of times the 5th sub is the coach or the analyst or somebody that they don't really want to play. They're just on there because they have the extra spot to fill. And now we got to figure out, assuming that they're staying with 8 orgs, which I would imagine none of the orgs are going to lose their spot unless they decide to pull out of Vainglory. And then even still, they would probably sell their spot. So I got to assume that they're staying with 8 teams for now. And now you got to come up with 40 just for starting rosters. 40. That's an extra 8 compared to what's in the league right now. Give or take a couple, because some teams are carrying 5. What? And we only February's not that far away. So I mean, I know a couple of months is probably plenty of time to plan, but let's look at the way that roster changes usually happen in Vainglory, right? When was the last time you saw a roster change with like a new player kind of out of nowhere? Not often. Most of the time it's player A going from team A to team B, and then player B going from team B to team C, and you just see the same pros just on different teams under, on different rosters under a different flag, whatever you want to call it. But now we got to find 8 more players for just the field starting rosters, and then you're talking another 16 plus to fill out the subs. Like most Vainglory, I shouldn't say most. A lot of the Vainglory organizations that I have been a part of don't pay a lot of attention to challengers. So how are you gonna come up with these people magically that you need to fill your roster? And which teams, so which teams do you think are going to get focused fast enough to pick up new players or to try out new players and to start thinking along these lines of 5v5? They better start soon because it's going to be here faster than you think. And right now, most players are probably thinking about some type of off-season, taking a break or whatever. The most committed ones aren't. The most committed ones will still be grinding. But, you're going to have players thinking of off-season, of a break. And now they got to prep for 5v5 competitively with not very long to learn it, to prepare for it, to figure out who's playing which position. There's going to be... Look, the teams will figure it out, right? They will field a roster. They'll put something together. but it's going to be more chaotic than I think anyone realizes. You're talking about a team who right now has one carry, one jungler, and one captain. And most teams, like most of those players, are good at their role. They're not uber flexible. They're not going to, suddenly go from being a captain to being a carry, a laner. So, yeah, they're going to try and figure out, and then on top of it, like, you got to start thinking, like, 5v5 macro play and 5v5 meta and, learning all these new items that aren't out yet. And, they'll get a chance, and when the early access comes out, I'm sure, I'm assuming that the pro players, even if they don't have the golden ticket, will get early access just so they can practice, or they'll put it on the pro only server, the tournament server as they call it, that they use for VG8 and stuff like that, for the pros to practice and work all this stuff out. But I promise, and maybe I shouldn't promise, but I promise you that when the season gets started, you're going to see a lot of changes. We're not used to changes, and usually the changes aren't that great. But you're going to see players go from lane to roam to captain to jungle to whatever. Like, people are going to move all over the place. You'll see a player go from top lane to mid lane to bot lane. And like, I don't think that anybody is ready for just the complete clusterfuck that's about to happen to the competitive scene when they finally go 5v5 competitive. As far as I know, a lot of players aren't even contracted past the end of this year. So not only do teams who are going to lose players because the contract is over, they could always re-sign them. And, there's going to be players that aren't happy, that don't want to re-sign. And there'll be plenty of players that want to stick around with the org. But so not only do they have to worry about getting new contracts signed with all of the new players, or all of the current players, now they have to go scout new players. And I'm sure to an extent the current players will have some feedback on that, some more information for the orgs to help them out. Some of the less organized organizations will just tell their players to go find players for the 5v5 rather than having a support team and a support staff to scout the players, to try to, watch some VODs on players and figure out who they can bring in. And what do you judge them on? Because mechanical skill is still going to matter, but strategy and intelligence and shot calling and item prioritization and objective, the macro play, all of that is going to become far more important than the mechanical skill. But don't let me fool you, and don't let me oversell it. Mechanical skill will still be king of team fights, but macro play will be king of the 5v5. And you can kind of look back to the worlds that just happened with Tribe, the way that Tribe out-rotated every team that they played. The macro play in a MOBA is so important. So a smart team is going to want to scout all of this. A smart team is going to have to figure out a way. They're going to figure out a way to look beyond just like what we can see in VODs as far as mechanical skill, as far as what players did good in the Challenger Series. It's going to change more than you know, more than you realize. The landscape of competitive Vainglory is getting ready to go through an overhaul, and it's going to cause chaos, and there's going to be changes. And speaking of support staffs, like it's my suspicion that the teams who address a support staff more, who embrace a support staff more, are going to be most successful when 5v5 competitive hits. I think that in 3v3, the teams that embraced a support staff were overall more successful than ones that, just kind of had a support staff because it became the in thing to do, picked up a coach because it became an in thing to do. And you know what? A lot of orgs don't even care who the coach is, like the fifth sub, or the fifth starter, the sub, whatever, second sub on the team who's not good enough to play, so we're just going to let him coach. The teams that think of the support staff and understand that in 5v5, one coach and one analyst, or one coach and two analysts, or however you want to do it, is not going to be enough. But then how are they going to afford it? Right? Because no organization is getting rich off of Vainglory right now at this moment. And I don't know how all of the financials are going to change. I don't know if things like the franchise stipend are going to go up or help out with that or whatever. But support staff, in my estimation, is going to be so much more important, because you have, 66% more players to scout on each team, right? You used to have to scout 3 players. Now you're going to have to scout 5. The draft is going to become so much more complicated with 5 picks, right? And I'm assuming that they're coming up with some type of draft mode. Nobody's seen it yet, and to my knowledge, it's not been instituted yet, but there has to be some type of draft. As I said in a previous podcast, let's hope it's more than 2 bans for a 5v5 draft, but we'll see which direction they go. But the support staff is going to just, like, I promise you, the teams that jump on the support staff and truly invest in a full-fledged support staff from top to bottom, right? And I'm talking a team manager, maybe a head coach. You're probably going to need some assistant coaches. You're going to need analysts. You're going to need data. Like you have to, let me tell you something. One coach, one analyst, or even one coach and 2 analysts is really pushing it in 3v3, especially for what they pay in Vainglory. Right? Like, one of the reasons that I had to give up coaching is because I got to work a full-time job. I got bills to pay. I got things to think about. And coaching Vainglory is not paying as a full-time job. Which is slightly different than some of the younger, like I said, the fifth sub type person or second sub type person that's just kind of stepping in. The younger crowd, kids in college, whatever. Those types of people, maybe not so important for being a coach to support them in order to do it full time. But in my summation, the teams that and I don't know which teams those are going to be, but the teams that truly embrace having a full support staff, you will see those teams come out the gates swinging. And the teams that try to skimp by with it have no clue what they're in for. I am very scared, and in a way, I'm very certain that it's going to happen, that we're going to see 1 or 2 teams up at the top, and there's just going to be a bunch of bad teams to start out with. Because I don't think that organizations are going to understand, and maybe some of them will, I don't know. some of these orgs are already involved in things like League of Legends, like G2 is in League of Legends. I believe Fnatic is in League of Legends. TSM is in League of Legends. Things like that. Cloud9 in League of... But we're talking huge orgs right now, right? So maybe they pull at least, some like input and some knowledge from what they're already doing in League of Legends as far as a support staff. And so that will help them get ahead of the curve as far as knowing what they're going to need for a 5v5 support staff. But the smaller orgs, or orgs that aren't involved in other 5v5 MOBAs and things like that, they're in for a rude awakening about what's going to be needed. And I think if you see them try to skimp by, they are going to drop hard. And so we may see a lot of shakeups at the challenger level, the challenge battle level, whatever, as far as orgs coming and going and coming and going. Things are going to change more than you know. And it's exciting, but it's concerning at the same time. Like, I'm concerned for what the competitive scene is going to look like when the dust settles, so to speak, because I kind of feel like most orgs, either they don't know or they don't care, right? Like, there's orgs out there, like Tempo Storm, for example. Tempo Storm left VG because it was just never a big title for them. And I mean, it's fair to say, why should it be, right? Because it's why should it be a big title to them when, at least from everything that I've been told, most orgs are losing money on Vainglory. And if they're not, it's probably because they're part of the franchise system. So some orgs are just not going to care. They're just not going to put that much into it. And other orgs are. Other orgs are going to care. Other orgs have fully embraced Vainglory. And they're going to fully embrace understanding, like, they need a real support staff now, not just one coach and one analyst or two analysts, right? You're going to need a full support staff, because if you've listened to me talk about this stuff over time, being a coach is a lot of, it's more of it is about like personality management. And now you got 5 people to manage instead of just 3. You're going to need help with that. There's going to be team tiffs and team disagreements that are going to take up so much time. You're going to need a coach for that. And you're going to need a coach to actually plan, or however they want to design it. But I don't know that many people are thinking about this yet. So I don't know that any orgs have, I shouldn't say any orgs, but I don't know that a lot of the current VG orgs even even have a grasp of the concept of what they're going to need. I think we might just see a lot of orgs go into it and be like, yeah, we're just going to figure it out as it goes. And we're going to have some really strong teams, and we're going to have some bottom dwellers because of it. Like in the chaos and simply the fact that, some people are going to take it serious and some people aren't, or whatever. And maybe in the end it ends up being exactly what it is, right? You got great teams like TSM, Cloud9, always up at the top. You have the middle of the pack, right? Those teams that, aren't quite as convicted, don't quite put in the work. And then you're just going to have some really bad teams, because everybody's just kind of thinking, I think anyway, my impression, my guess, I could be really wrong, so just don't even listen to me, but my guess, my gut tells me a lot of teams are like, yep, we're just going to stick with our 3-man roster. Maybe we'll elevate a sub, And here's the other thing about subs. Some of those guys are subs not because they're not good, but because they don't have the time to put into it full time. Like, I mean, look at Excelsior. I don't know what's up with Excelsior. He's a sub for Tribe. He's a sub for Gangstars. He has come in for Tribe over the past season or so, filled in for Max Green, and done so decently. You can't tell me that there's not some of the teams that couldn't fucking win a game this past season, a game until like the last week. Like Gangstars and Tempo Storm came together and Gangstars, I believe, pulled off a win prior to, or was it Tempo Storm? One of them pulled off a win before the two met. Like, we were on a crash course of both of these teams not winning a single game, but then in like week 7 they had to play each other, so we knew that somebody was going to get a win. And I think Gangstars pulled off the first win, but Tempo Storm got the only series win, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong on that, but anyway, you're going to tell me of all these teams that Excelsior couldn't find a place? So I think that with somebody like Excelsior, and there's other subs like that too, they're a sub because they can fill in once in a while, but they can't put in the full time and effort. And I could be wrong about Excelsior. I don't know. Maybe he's happy. I don't know exactly what his deal is. I never asked him. But there's subs out there that are subs not because they can't play, not because they're not good enough, but because they don't have the time. And I think that there's just teams out there that are going into this like, we're just going to add a couple of pieces to our 3-man roster. We're going to be good. Not thinking that anything else needs to change. And that is so wrong. And this was the Q. I am Belligerent. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Hit me up on Twitter. All that good stuff. Subscribe on iTunes. It's all good. It's all out there. Peace.